After School Network, and I am super excited to see so many of you here today. So let me give you just a quick background on myself before we jump into this too far. I've been working with kids and families and teachers, kind of an assortment of all of them, for the last 20 years. And in those 20 years, one of my favorite things in the world is reading to the kids. And there we go, sorry. Reading with kids and just seeing how books can really bring out so much of their personalities, and they learn so many things outside of just what's in front of their faces in the book. So I really was excited to kind of put this together for you guys and just go through, I hope, share some of my passion with you on how we capture imaginations and, we really broaden those minds and those thoughts through books and stories. So while we're letting people, maybe, there we go. While people are kind of trickling in, I would love to hear from you guys. Either you can use your speakers or you can chat out, just like, what was one of your favorite books as a child? Something you loved having read to you, or something you love to read to kids now. But think about a favorite story or book, and I would just love to hear from all of you on what you can think of there.
So, Katie, I'll go ahead and read you a few that are coming in. We have some great answers. We have Bunnicula, so kind of like Dracula, but with the bunny. Where the Sidewalk Ends, Stella Luna, Lily's Purple Plastic Purse, all the George and Marthas. I love to read Island Born with my little cousins. Then The Cat in the Hat, Stargirl, and I read all the kissing handbooks to my kids. Some of these are newer. I haven't heard of some of these. Oh, and someone asked, what is Island Born?
I haven't heard of that either. It sounds amazing, whatever it is.
And Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Well, that could be a good new book though, Chaz. Traveling Plants. I mean,
plants. Well,
why not?
It happen.
Awesome, you guys. Any other thoughts out there? The Cat in the Hat, my dad would sing it, huh? That's pretty fantastic. I never thought about singing a book before, I don't think. At least not The Cat in the Hat. So we'll jump into, I think we're kind of, our numbers settling, Chaz?
Yeah, I think we're about there. We have, yep, we're good.
Okay. All right. Cool. So we'll just jump into why books are so important, why reading is so important. Just thinking about all of the things that reading brings to us, it's kind of, mind-boggling if you think about it very much, how many areas in our lives books affect us and our kids from the very time that they're born to now. So as you kind of look over this slide and thinking about all of the things here that are considered benefits of reading, from the better choices to the analytical thinking to the the more academic pieces, kind of look over that and tell me if you feel like, is there something in here that you're like, whoa, really? Books can, reading can bring that out? Or do you think that I missed something super glaring here? So just kind of take a moment and kind of read over these and think about anything that you think I could have missed or that's shocking.
May I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
I'm on a cell phone, so I cannot see these graphs or the illustrations very well. Is there a way to watch this at a later time with all the off of a computer?
There is, but I can also read them to you. Whoops, as soon as I get back to the right screen. So we have making better choices, understanding emotions, increased self-esteem, teamwork, friendship, active listening, validation, analytical thinking, problem solving, making connections, math, science, social studies, literacy, and history. Is there anything in there that you guys feel like, oh man, I missed it, and you missed something, or that you're surprised to hear or see?
All of the above. For me, as much trauma as there is in life, I think the trigger of imagination, where you can be somewhere else, even though you're physically present somewhere, and you need to have encouragement or hope. I grew up on fairy tales. I'm from Germany. That gives a lot of strength to read stories that oh, they survived that, or that's doable, or I can think outside of the box. So
awesome, thank you. Yeah, cultural competency. Good call, Amberly and Karen. I guess in my brain, social studies covered that, but that should be its own little section. Anything else that's glaring to you guys, again, that's surprising or that's missing?
Katie, in the chat, Eleanor, but I'm surprised by teamwork, mostly because I was like Bill and always had my nose in a book during every social activity, so it would have been, that wouldn't have been my first thought.
Nice. Well, Eleanor, hopefully we're going to touch on that with one of the books we're going to be looking at today. So I will kind of put that in my back pocket right now to make sure that I point that out when we get to it. Is there anything else that's surprising to anyone else? And for the record, Eleanor, I was the same way. Don't talk to me, I'm reading a book. All right, we're going to go ahead and move then into why are we reading out loud? I think we can all agree that reading is important. So what did I just do? Okay, sorry. When we're reading out loud, the things that are really that jump out that are really important to us is the modeling of fluent reading. So when I say that, the idea is that we're going to be reading well, and we're going to be saying the words right, and we're going to be, doing all of these things that we do when we fluently read. But for me, there's a but in here, and what the but is we all mess up too when we're reading. We'll say a word the wrong way. We'll twist words around in our heads as we're reading them out loud. We might have the wrong pronunciation or a different pronunciation, like potato or potato. It's important for kids to hear that too, to hear us mess up sometimes, to hear that we say things a little bit differently, so that they can see that it's not a huge deal if they pronounce something wrong or they read it differently. And then encouragement really is talking about encouraging them to read and to write on their own, providing the background. We're talking about when we are getting into books, and I'll do this with one of ours today on really getting into how do we provide background. But thinking about when we pick up a new book as adults, we'll find something new. It might be on a topic we've never read before. And generally speaking, somewhere in our lives, we have some kind of background sit in the back of our brain that makes sense when we start reading the book. But when we're introducing new books and new topics for kids, they don't have that huge, catalog in their brain yet. So when we read out loud, we're kind of adding to their catalog, and we're giving them the background of the book so that it makes sense and so that it's more relatable to them. The increase in vocabulary is kind of self-explanatory. Critical thinking, we're going to talk about a little bit more, and then the sense of community. So Ingrid talked about trauma in this world. And right now, certainly, we're all kind of experiencing trauma every day, because every day we don't know what's going on. And our kids don't know what's going on either. So one of the things that kids have lost has been that community in many ways of going to after school, of going to school. And so when we read out loud and we have our kids join together like we are today, even if I can't see all your faces, I know you're here, and I can scroll through and look for you guys, and I can hear your voices. So the sense of community stays somewhat intact because we're together and we're reading one book together and we're having this shared experience together. So whether you're in a classroom sitting on the floor with your kids, or you're here on Zoom and reading to your kids over a teleconferencing platform, you're going to build that sense of community. So that's one of the biggest reasons that reading aloud is really helpful for kids. So now I'm going to ask you guys, I can do this right, to think about when you pick out a book, what are you looking for? And let's see if I can do this right. And then I have a little word cloud, maybe. and I might not. And then we'll just, there it is. Okay. So if you guys want to just jump on here, sorry. Okay, so if you guys want to go ahead and either respond at the website on the top or text Katie Atchison 325 at 37607. Think about one thing you're looking for in a book. With the word clouds, you guys, don't give me more than one word because it breaks them up and it comes out weird. So think of one thing when you're looking for a book. What are you looking for? Excitement or whatever. Can I put it in the chat? I don't know how. Like just type it out? Is that what you're asking me? Sorry. Thank you, Everly. Everybody's got it. She's a faster typer than I am. I don't know if I activated it. Okay. Yeah. Well, I may have broken this already. Oh my goodness. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure what I did. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Engaged. I see a word. That makes me happy. Plot relatability. Yeah, relatability is a huge one for me. Oh, 2 words do work. I stand corrected. Comedy. In case you guys haven't figured this out yet, any of you that have spent any time with me knows that comedy is a huge thing for me. So yeah, big one. Simplicity and culture. I do love that concept of people that look like me, thinking about that relatability again, right? Going back to that sort of thing. Even something as simple as wearing a pair of glasses. When you're a kid, you might feel a little bit self-conscious about those glasses. And you read a book with another kid reading glasses and suddenly you're like, oh, well, okay. That kind of goes to that validation we talked about on that very first slide. You guys have a lot of thoughts. New learning, emotional connection, teaching, adventure. That's a good one. I mean, not that any of these are bad, right? Like the beauty is when we're looking for a book is that we all get to look for different things because we all have our own things that we love and that we want to share with our kids. It's like we're slowing down on that. I'm going to switch us back to, look at that, I did it right. Back to our slide. So when you're picking out books, I just kind of came up with this little acronym of picking books. So pick. You're looking for your purpose, and that can be really broad. So it could be as simple as you just want to find a funny book. That could be your purpose. Or it could be, I want to find a book specifically about horses and how we raise them. So just think about your purpose and then interest. When we talk about interest, we're talking about your interest as well as the kids. So obviously we always do want to do things based on the children's interest. But one of the best things about reading out loud too, for me anyway, is that we get to share our interests with our kids. So for me, one of my big things is folk tales and legends. So a lot of kids maybe aren't really into that. You don't really necessarily think kids want to hear all of the folk tales that are out there, but they might be interested in something else. So if I know that I have a group of kids that is really interested in, say, space, I can start thinking about, is there a folk tale out there somewhere, because that's what I'm interested in, that might talk about some element of space, like the moon or stars or whatever, and kind of bridge those two interests together. So we are expanding their thoughts, we're expanding their interest at the same time that we're staying interested ourselves. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. The next one is charisma. So I'm curious to hear from you guys, when you hear me say charisma when picking a book, how does that land for you? I'm also curious to hear how you interpret that word. Something will engage, writer's voice, keeping interest, how you read it. You guys are awesome. Look at this. Chad, you're sleeping over there, man.
Well,
Easy to read.
actually, if I can share something, one thing I always like to look up definition. If we look at the definition of charisma, it's a compelling attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion in others. To me, for a book to be very charismatic is really, it has to start in the title or maybe the cover. You know, I think that's, we always know the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover, but that is one of the first things we see. You know, that's really, kind of what intrigues you. But then I feel like your title and your cover needs to be just as charismatic as the content of the book, and what's appealing. That's why there's so many genres of reading and of storytelling and books. Just having those connections and things as well. So that's what I was looking at. So I was looking at
I was giving you a hard time. You're good. That's funny, actually, because I was about to read that exact definition to you guys. So Chaz is all over it. And then thinking about what Chaz just said about the aesthetics of it, from the cover all the way in. You find a book like this one, which, by the way, I think is really cool, but H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau. If you're a kid, you might look at this and go, what? That doesn't look very cool. It's just a grain book. Versus, we're talking about chapter books, which we're really going to be talking about picture books, but this one with Nelson Mandela, now there's like an actual face here. There's something that makes, something that grabs my attention. If it's a kid's book, I'm looking for pictures. I'm looking for things that really do catch my eye. So you nailed that piece. On the charisma, also from what you guys are saying and how you read it, you like it. You don't necessarily know why you like it, but you do. And then the last part is kid-friendly. And so on kid-friendly, this really is kind of broad in the sense that you know your kids better than I do. So I'm not going to tell you that The Long Walk to Freedom is not kid-friendly, because you might be working with high school students that would be very interested in Nelson Mandela's life and might be very interested in some excerpts from this book. Maybe you won't read the whole however many thousand pages there are in here, but you would read it with them. So that's kid-friendly because who your kids are. Also keep in mind that kid-friendly does not necessarily have to mean age-specific or grade-specific. So you can read a book that is considerably below reading level or above reading level. The idea is we're going back to this purpose, interest, and charisma. With those, that's what makes it kid-friendly. Does that make sense to everyone? Cool. So one of the things that I told you guys, or I didn't actually tell you, but I was going to tell you, is that we're going to be kind of talking about how we plan our learning goals as well when we're using books. And so when we're choosing our book, and we talked about the purpose, we're thinking about what are we trying to accomplish? What do we hope to bring into our books and then into our children's minds? That made sense in my brain. I'm not sure if that made sense out loud. But so starting with social emotional, and the reason that I start with social emotional when I start planning learning goals with any book, no matter whether my overarching goal is maybe to teach a very specific science concept such as volume and mass, I also need to make sure that my social emotional needs are being met too. So, and I think that we all know that. We all work with kids, and we all know if our kids are not engaged socially, emotionally, they're not feeling involved, they're not feeling accepted, they're not feeling engaged, then the rest of it kind of falls flat. So I always start with my social emotional goals when I'm looking for books. What am I hoping this book will teach them besides volume and mass? Volume and mass, we're all going to go to sleep. But we can get a book that teaches us about volume and mass and hit some of our social emotional goals, such as making better choices, understanding and identifying emotions, teamwork. Again, Eleanor, we're going to get to that. Validation, self-esteem. What else do you think of when you think about teaching social emotional skills? What do you see in books that we could teach kids?
Are you talking about how to handle a situation?
Well, good question. So what I'm thinking about is when you're looking at a book, say, you know, I'm thinking about if I want to talk to kids about family dynamics. Maybe right now I'm thinking about how do I talk to kids about how to get along with our parents right now, or our siblings, because our lives are crazy and we're all stuck in the same house and we just want to kill each other. So I want to think about that in my books, right? And finding a book, what can I find that might talk about how I get along with someone else? How do I get along with my siblings or family members or people that are close to me? So thinking about kind of, Holly says greater motivation. Yeah, that's a good one. So thinking about kind of what are you hoping the kids are going to get out of a book? What do you feel like, I guess, what else, other social emotional skills would you hope to find when you're picking out a book? Empathy. Ingrid, did that help?
Kind of thinking, it puts me back into how to deal with the situation. Yeah, kindness, patience.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Kindness, patience, getting along with each other, friendship.
How not to get discouraged.
Yes. Yeah. So you guys are on it. I mean, again, kind of having characters that openly emote. I agree, Justine, that really helps kids to see emotions. That is one of the advantages too, also of reading out loud. When we read out loud, we get to bring those emotions into our voices and into our faces and into our body language. And that helps the kids see it even more. And they get to see how that might look, not just in a picture, but on your face. And then if you kind of turn that on them, they get to feel that and they get to think about how they would feel if they were in that moment. So the next part we look at is planning our higher level thinking. So whenever we read a book, we have this huge opportunity to expand our minds, to expand our language. And it's all in how we read the book, which it's all about that. We're going to go back to that word charisma. We need to have charisma when we're reading. And we are going to read here shortly, I promise. And we'll kind of look at how we can read something with that charisma. But one of the things we do when we're looking for books is we're looking for how can I bring out what higher level thinking am I hoping to see with my kids with this book. And really with all books, we hope that we can kind of hit most of this, which is, for those of you that can't see it, I've got analytical thinking, problem solving, making predictions, active listening, increased language, and making connections. So a book can do all of these things in one book, in one reading, and it's all about how you guys work with the book and the kids. If we just read it in a monotone and we hate the book, and the kids know we hate the book, none of these things are going to happen. We're not going to get any of these things. We're going to have kids running around, and the only critical thinking they're going to be having and the only problem solving they're going to be thinking about is how to get out of this Zoom meeting, right? Or how to get out of this circle because I don't want to hear this book anymore because my teacher hates it. Why do I care? So that's a big thing we have to really think about, is making sure that our kids know we love this book too. We want to share it with them. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to teach you. It's, I'm going to share this with you. And then we get to pull out all these higher level thinking skills. So when you pick out a book, if you know that you have kids maybe that struggle with problem solving skills, look for a book that talks about problem solving, which we're going to read in just a second. So we'll see kind of how that works. And then the last one is academics. So when you're planning your learning goals, think about if there are academics you want to cover. The thing to remember when you guys are picking out books is you don't have to hit all of these things. Don't feel like you have to get an academic goal and a social emotional goal and a critical thinking goal, or higher level thinking goal. You can choose one thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, all of these things. So don't let yourselves get bogged down or overwhelmed with that kind of feeling like you have to hit all these things. But there are several here we can kind of hit. Do you guys have any thoughts before we jump into our books?
I lucked out. I teach piano. I'm a Sistema teacher, so music after school. And I lucked out a book on Beethoven's life. And it was written at the level for the kids. And it talked about him being verbally abused by his alcoholic dad and harassed by his brothers. And so we actually were able to stop and talk about what is that considered, or how would you feel, or, you know, those kind of things. And
Awesome.
yeah, it covered a lot of ground, and I was so tickled that I was thinking music and it ended up teaching all these other skills.
Yes. Yes. And that's like the most for me, like, this is what I miss about teaching. There's a lot I miss about teaching because I love kids. But one of the biggest things I miss is reading the books, because exactly what you just said, Ingrid. You find a book and you're thinking, okay, great, this book is all about bats, and I love bats. And then you get into it and you're like, holy cow, like, there's all these other wonderful things we can learn from this book about bats, such as Stella Luna, which someone mentioned earlier as being one of their favorite stories. So today we're going to be looking briefly at Raindrops Roll, Why the Moon is in the Sky, Stella Luna, Officer Buckle, and Gloria, and I'm So Embarrassed. So the first one is Raindrops Roll. So Chaz talked about that front cover. I have it here for you guys as well. So the first thing to think about when we are doing this, you guys, is thinking about how are you going to hold your book when you are reading to the kids. So anytime you get a book, you're going to want to kind of get in front of the camera first and practice reading it, so you know, oh, the light behind me is bad, I need to fix it, or I need to, you know, move my book over this way so they can see my pictures. Sometimes we feel like it's more beneficial for them to see a picture up close, so we can take a picture of it and put it on the screen. I do like to have them mostly looking at the actual pages so they can kind of see how we read, but there are advantages to putting up, say, one page like this. And so with Raindrops Roll, when I bought it, I didn't buy it for anything. Amberly, Officer Buckle. I didn't buy it for anything other than the real pictures. Like, I saw this book and went, holy cow, this is beautiful. It's real pictures. I got into this book and I saw all these beautiful pictures of bugs and plants and trees and leaves. And so for me, in the moment of picking my book, it was charisma, right? Charisma won the day the day on this one. But what I want to really focus on with this book for you guys is each book we're going to kind of talk about an element of planning. And the first one, well, is actually planning. What I want you to think about, I want everyone to take a moment and just really look at these pages, on these 2 pages that I have up here on the screen for you. And I want you to look at them and think to yourself, what is one thing in here that could be a topic or a theme just by looking at the picture? So I'm going to give you a really easy one. We're looking at, for those of you that can't see, there are some flowers with some raindrops on them, and there's a bee on one flower, there's a dragonfly on a plant. So easy one. I look at this page and I go, bug life. That's something that I could teach kids. That's one thing that I can see in this one page. What else do you see? Surface tension, how water molecules connect. Wow, see, there you go. So take a look, you guys, just take a moment and let's see what you guys come up with that from just this one page. Sometimes we get books because we love them, and then the books tell us our themes. And that is the lesson we're going to take from this book. Colors, how water molecules connect, pollination, different flowers, photography. Geez, Justine, I didn't even think of that. And that seems like really obvious now. Petal types, rain. Keep them coming, guys. You know, there's so much on this page, right? There's so much we can see. We just kind of have to broaden our brains a little bit and think a little bit about what all can I see on this page. Scale. Climates.
The things that I can't see but think about is springtime and hope.
Yes, spring, hope. Look at that. Water cycle, evaporation, raindrops. So yeah, so Ingrid went off into this less literal piece of springtime, but also hope. And there's like, the beauty of this is you can look at this page and you can see all of these things, and you're going to see things that I don't see, and vice versa. This is where the interest comes in now, right? We know the kids are interested in, say, flowers or bugs. Now I'm going to get this book out, and I'm going to find things to expand from there. Habitats, life cycle, gardening. So I'm going to pop up some that I came up with just as I was looking at this book the very first time I got this book, actually. So what I have for those that you can't see is bug life, bees, pollen, life cycle, water cycle, death and decay, chemicals, pests, mass and volume, plant life, ecology, and conservation. And actually, I have to say to you, because this is not true, it wasn't just me that came up with this. I put my son, and I had him look at the book with me and said, give me some things so I sound really smart. So, so some of this is my really smart kid talking. But those are the things that the two of us saw just in looking at these 2 pages. And so think about that. When you don't know what you want to teach, but you've got a book that you love, use that book to teach. The other thing to think about with this book, if you notice, the language is very, very simple. And that's okay, even with older kids, because now you're going to do exactly what you and I just did. We're going to look at the pictures and we're going to take it apart. Even with older kids, what do you guys see? What do you see, kids? What do you notice? And have them notice, you know, the pattern on the daisy or whatever that flower is. I would probably find out before I talk to the kids about it. But and have them start looking at that, talking about that mass and volume. So even though our words are very simple, you can make this very interesting even for older kids. The next one we're going to look at is why the moon is in the sky. So y'all heard me say that I love folk tales and I love legends. And so this book, I will admit, Chaz, this is not the most interesting cover in the world. I will admit that, right? But it's a pretty traditional one. For me, that was advantageous. So I had to sell this to my kids because it's kind of this kind of just brown sort of cool picture, but it's not necessarily like raindrops fall that's green and a picture and, you know, all these things. So sometimes we get to be the charisma for the book. So that would be how I open this book up with the kids. And this is where I was talking to you about background. We're going to bring that in. You guys, I'm so excited to share this with you because I love folk tales. And I know that I heard Johnny and Charlie and Sam over there talking about the moon the other day. So I thought we'd talk about why some indigenous tribes thought that the moon was in the sky. So we're going to get into this book and we're going to read it. So before I even start reading, my hope is, are we interested, guys? Do we want to hear the story now? Like, did I sell it to you? I see some nods. Go ahead, Chaz.
Can I add something real quick? Well, I think
Absolutely.
It's really interesting. You're saying it's not the most exciting cover. Well, this one's actually very exciting to me just because of all the silhouettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that's really important to remember, you know, when introducing books or engaging in conversation is asking those questions. Make them have predictions first of what's going to happen. Like, what do you guys notice from this cover? From the cover, what predictions can you make of what you think this story will be about? And look at them like, well, I can see a chicken, I can see like a little girl with a basket and different animals. And, you know, we could say, what do you think is going to happen to these characters without even knowing who they are? So I think even though, yes, sometimes it's not like compared to other things, it might not be as exciting, but this is very exciting to me just because if we help them make predictions.
Perfect.
It's very intriguing.
And once again,
I like that too.
Once again, Chaz has jumped my gun. So on this particular book, we are going to talk about the open. No, you're good. I love it. I love it. Yeah, we're going to talk about those open-ended questions and getting those predictions out and getting those thoughts out. So I'm going to read to you just the first 2 pages of this book for time's sake. I was going to read the whole thing, but I'm worried we're going to run out of time. So can we all see it? Let's go this way because my lighting is bad. See, I should have done this, you guys. I'm not practicing what I preach. Okay, that's not true. I just did this last night and it was dark. So all I had was my bedroom lights going on. I didn't think about the sunshine behind me. All right, here we go.
You want mac and cheese? No, thank you.
Oh, Anansi the spider had 6 sons. Each son was named for what he could do best. The first son could see problems happening far away. so he was named Sea Trouble. The second son could build roads through thick forests, so he was named Road Builder. The third son could drink up mighty rivers, so he was named River Drinker. The fourth son could skin animals neatly and quickly, so he was called Game Skinner. The fifth son could throw stones a long way and always hit the mark, so he was called Stone Thrower. The sixth son was born big and round. He was so plump that he was called Cushion. Now, I would have held this up maybe closer for you guys as I was reading, so you could see the pictures a little bit more. And like I said, you could also take pictures ahead of time and put them on your screen. Now, pretend, guys, that this is a sticky note that I had here. So we're talking about our open-ended questions. One of the reasons that you want to read a book ahead of time is to get those questions ready. So you have some ideas of what you want to ask kids. In a book like this, in these first 2 pages, I don't know how many open-ended questions you guys heard, but I heard a whole bunch we could pull out of those 2 pages. So what I wrote on my little sticky note was one of them, which is, if you got your name based on your abilities, what do you think it would be? Right? So now we've got kids thinking about, wow, like now they got to think about their abilities. We're talking about self-esteem. This, Eleanor, can play into teamwork because we're talking about these 6 sons, right? That all have these special skills. So how can we turn that into, as we read this book, we're going to find this book goes into teamwork. And so that's what I'm talking about when I talk about a book teaching teamwork. It can be that, and then we can be developing questions and activities that build more on that teamwork. So what I want you guys to think about off those 2 pages, I forgot to warn you that you had to really listen, but think about what are some questions that you could ask based off those 2 pages that I just read. And then here are some kind of starters. Why, how, what if, when, I wonder, what are your thoughts on, if you were, and tell me about. So I'm laughing at Amberly identifying with Cushion because so do I. So just think about what I just read about the 6 sons and their names. And that's all I read. Can you think of any other questions? Anything pop in your brain that you might ask a kid? Which son do you most relate to? That's a great question. Why do you think they all have, yes, why do they all have different skills? Why do you think the other siblings got their names? What specific details do you notice from the pictures? Wonder if they all get along? Did anybody else notice when we read this that there were no daughters? And did you wonder about that? Could that be a cultural thing? This is an old African folktale. Right? There's a question right there. Why do you suppose it's all boys? How will the story revolve around spiders? Right. What do spiders have to do with the moon being in the sky? More thinking. So we have all of these thoughts. I will throw out at you before we move, keep talking. I want to keep seeing all these questions coming up. When we say when in an open-ended question, that can turn into a closed-ended question real easily. If we say, when does the moon come out? That's pretty closed, right? The moon comes out at night. Technically, it's, never mind. So most kids are going to say it comes out at night, right? So what we want to say when we start with a when question, it's going to be, when the moon comes out, what do you think XYZ? When the moon comes out, why do you suppose the owls start to hoot? Whatever it is. So your when is not a question of when does this happen, if that makes sense. I wonder if they like the skills they were given. That's a good question too. So do you guys see how 2 pages, seriously, right? That was like hardly anything. We have all these questions coming out. We have questions about how did we get our names? How did they get their names? Which, and then we can have a whole conversation about how we got our names, which means we can now talk about family involvement, right? Because now you have an assignment. I want you to go talk to your mom and dad or whoever you live with and find out how you got your name. Or maybe even, what does your name mean? My name, by the way, means pure, which is kind of funny, but whatever. It probably should be smart aleck, but apparently it's pure. So think about those things, right, that we can kind of pull out of these books that, again, you might not have. When I looked at the book, Why the Moon is in the Sky, I was excited about a folk tale. And then I started thinking about family history. Who knew? So moving forward a little bit more, topic ideas. Those 2 pages, what do you think of? What topics could we talk about now? Like we did with the last one, where we looked at just the pictures. I want you to think about the 2 pages we just read. What are some topics we can pull out of those 2 pages to teach? Such as spiders is an easy one, right? Genealogy, culture, siblings, skills, the origin of the story, social emotional, siblings, careers. Check you guys out.
You froze my brain with genealogy. I start my day doing translation, and so you just did me in. Sorry.
You're good. You're good. Skills, talents. I mean, look at this, you guys. Like, there's so much. We read 2 pages. 2 pages. All right, so we're gonna move because, of course, I talk too much and we're gonna run out of time. So I want to jump into Stella Luna because somebody said that was one of their favorites. We definitely want to talk about Stella Luna. For those of you unfamiliar with the story, basically, in a nutshell, Stella Luna is a little baby bat. She gets separated from mom in an owl attack. She lands in a bird's nest and she has to learn how to adapt to living with birds. And then we see how she, you know, I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read it. So that's all I'm going to tell you. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this page now. I'm going to read 1 page to you this time. When I'm reading it, what I want you to do is look at the picture and think very carefully about what you're hearing. What I want you to pull out of this one are the social emotional topics and ideas that come out of this. So that's what you're going to look for. Look for social emotional questions and social emotional lessons that we can take from this book. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. Let me find the page. I know it's on the screen, but I really like to read the book. And again, think about that. You can have your pictures up there on the screen so the kids can see them more closely. Stella Luna learned to be like the birds. She stayed awake all day and slept at night. She ate bugs even though they tasted awful. Her bat ways were quickly disappearing, except for one thing. Stella Luna still liked to sleep hanging upside down. Once, when Mama was away, the curious baby birds decided to try it too. When Mama Bird came home, she saw 8 tiny feet gripping the edge of the nest. Ah! She cried, "Get back up here this instant! You're gonna fall and break your necks!" Charisma, guys, charisma. We have to bring that in there, right? Let's have the kids smiling and laughing and engaged. So based on that, let's hear it. Social emotional things that just came out of that 1 page. And look at this picture too. For those of you who can look at the picture and see, is there something in there, social emotional, that you could pull out of it? So I don't know if Maddie was talking about teamwork for the last book or this book, but it actually applies to both. Care and concern. How being different might make us feel. Belonging and identity. So as a mom of a child who is on the autism spectrum, food is an issue, big issue, was when he was a child, huge issue. So one of the things that jumped out at me was when she ate bugs, even though they tasted awful, right? How can we talk to kids about that? Conformity. Yes, Justine, because I don't believe in conforming. So I hope that's where you're going with that. And learning how to conform and yet also keep who we are, right? To do what we need to do, but also stay ourselves. Ha, good. So, I mean, again, we've got all of these thoughts coming from just this one page. It gets us in the feels, right? Like what emotions did you notice? What emotions do you think could be going through little Stella Luna's mind, or mom's, or the birds, or your kids? Worry, confusion, acceptance, surprise. Kristen said, for those of you who can't read it, when you did the mom's voice, scared. Yes, well, that was kind of the point, right? Is we want the kids to know that mom was freaking out.
One thing we always associate with love is usually speaking gently and softly. In this case, her love and concern expressed itself differently.
Yes, yes, it did. All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to jump us forward real quickly because we are running out of time. And we're going to look at Officer Buckle and Gloria. Stella Luna was inquisitive, Maxine, and that's a good one too, right? We talk about that validation too in Stella Luna. We can talk about validating it's okay to feel different. It's okay if you don't fit in, or that it's okay that you don't feel like you fit in. And here are some things we can do to help you with that. So validating those really big emotions too. So that's another really nice thing about Stella Luna and books like Stella Luna. If you go further into the book, you find that she finds the bats. She discovers she's not quite so strange after all because she's a bat. But she also discovers that her bat abilities save her new birdie siblings. And so they find that they all have abilities that are good. They're just different. So yeah, Stella Luna, I love Stella Luna. I could have done the whole thing on Stella Luna and spent about 4 hours, but none of us had that much time. So Officer Buckle and Gloria is basically about a safety officer at a school. He wants kids and teachers to be safe. They're not, they do crazy things. And then one day he gets a canine named Gloria. Up until he gets Gloria, his talks are really boring, nobody listens, and there's always accidents. The thing that I want you guys to take from this book and this page is to let the kids lead. So I talked about, we're going to stop and we're going to ask them these questions, these open-ended questions. We're going to, already have these in our books with our little sticky notes or however it is we remember it. So we know exactly what we're going to ask them, how we're going to ask them, when we're going to ask them. And it's really important that we know all that. We do want to do that. We do want to read ahead of time and have questions ready. Sometimes though, what we want to do instead of having questions ready is to have planned pauses where we're not asking questions. We're simply reading and then pausing and letting the kids lead the conversation. The idea with this is for you to take a moment to notice what they're noticing. This is really good, especially if you're like, I really can't decide what I want to work with the kids on next, but there's some really good things in this book, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. And as you're reading it and you're pausing on it, you're going to hear the kids catch a few things. They're going to say, oh, look at the dog, or I would do this, or I would do that. And you're going to hear their questions and their noticings, and you'll be able to then make some plans based on those noticings. So I'm going to read just this one page again. Never leave a thumbtack where you might sit on it. The audience roared. Officer Buckle grinned. He said the rest of the tips with plenty of expression. Side note, before this, he was really boring and he kind of talked in a monotone, so this is something the kids could have picked up on. Sorry. The children clapped their hands and cheered. Some of them laughed until they cried. Officer Buckle was surprised. He had never noticed how funny safety tips could be. After this safety speech, there wasn't a single accident. And then I pause. By now, our kids are used to us stopping and asking questions and having this open forum of free ideas, right? Where they get to think and they get to answer questions. So now you pause because the kids are used to it. They're going to start saying things to you. about what they noticed or what they thought. You might hear something like, yeah, I stepped on a thumbtack once and it hurt really bad. And here comes the conversation. So if you're the kids and I paused here, what would you be throwing out at me as a child hearing this book, using this page? What can you relate to? What did you think of? What did you notice? The dog is flying. Yes, the dog is flying. How the heck is that happening? There's a conversation. It could also be a moment like the thumbtack. When I was a kid, this is a true story. I lived in this little town and we had horses and we had a stable and there was a plank that had fallen down off of our yes, talking about tax and the pain. Anyway, so I stepped on this plank with this nail coming up through it and I didn't see it. I was wearing flip-flops. That nail went all the way through the top of my foot. My point is, not to really focus on that, but this is a story that comes to mind when I hear about thumbtacks, right? Oh, wow. And if I'm a kid and I just shared that story, holy cow, what kind of a conversation are we going to have? Talk about the tax and the pain. We talk about, after this safety speech, there wasn't a single accident. So if the kids aren't talking and they're not leading the conversation, still have questions ready, just in case they're not leading the conversation. But really the idea is to get them to grab a hold of it. You've paused and you can just say something like, what'd you guys notice? And that's it. And then that gets that conversation going without you having a planned specific question. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna move to, really quickly, Robert Munsch's I'm So Embarrassed. Robert Munsch is one of my most favorite authors in the world because he's hysterical. His books are funny. He does have a couple that make me cry, but that's a different story. And so the thing that I love about Robert Munsch is all of the expression and language and opportunity for me to be cuckoo bananas and yell and scream or whatever it is based on the book. So looking at this book, they're at the mall and he doesn't want to be embarrassed. Mom has just spit on her hand and wiped his hair down on the previous page. Ah! Yelled Andrew. Spit! Mommy spit on my hair in the mall. Very embarrassing. Oh dear, said Andrew's mom. I'm sorry about the spit. I keep forgetting how big you are. Don't worry. I will be very careful and not embarrass you again. Ha, said Andrew. So here's the big takeaway from this book. Enthusiasm. If I just went, spit, mommy spit, that it doesn't matter how good the pictures are because that was super boring, right? So get your enthusiasm up. And the biggest lesson from this book, sometimes a book can just be fun. You do not have to pick out a book and always have these big, huge, grand plans. One big, huge, grand plan we should always have is to have fun. So find some books that are funny, that you enjoy reading, that you get to be loud and obnoxious and silly, and just have fun with the book. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left. We're gonna go faster than I wanted to go, but we can still pull this off in talking about activities. And we kind of have been doing this. If you think about what we've done, we've looked at a page here and a page here and a page here, right? We've pulled out these little topics. What we can also do is pull out activities based on the books. So think about your resources, particularly right now. The kids are at home for the most part. Some of you are in programs, so you'll have a little bit different availability, but you're also going to have different constraints because of the whole, all the rules about what you can touch and what you can't touch and passing around. So consider your resources when you're considering activities and kind of think outside the box here. So think about things like rocks and paper, toilet paper tubes. We all know we have toilet paper tubes right now, or we don't. Soap, the bodies of the children themselves, the family. Remember, family is a huge resource. Think about why the moon is in the sky, and this was a great opportunity to talk about family. But you know what? So was I'm So Embarrassed, and so was Stella Luna, which, by the way, means that you could actually take all these books that seem unrelated, and every single one of them was related. Bugs have families. There's a family history. There's family within the rain, right? You have the moon and the family of the spiders. Then we went into Stella Luna. Then we went to Officer Buckle, who's kind of more like that family of choice. That dog became his family of choice. And finally, I'm So Embarrassed. moms are embarrassing. So you can do that too. Just you know, something to kind of think about if you kind of have this overarching thing where you really want to be talking about family for a long time, but you know, you want to do it in different ways. So think about your resources though, common toys, common household items, trees, twigs, pine cones, that sort of thing. So thinking about just, that was the wrong spot. Thinking about, we're not going to do breakouts because I talk too much. Thinking about why the moon is in the sky, and think about just say rocks. We could have the kids, and they have their phones with cameras, right? Presumably. Have the kids go outside and get some rocks and create spiders out of those rocks. See how creative they can get, or out of anything they can find outside. Send them outside. Tell them, go look in your backyard or your front yard, or not everybody has yards, and so you'll have to kind of figure this piece out. But figure out what your resources are to the best of your ability, and have the kids try to do things while you're together. Obviously is great, but also as homework, something for them to be doing and being excited about until you guys meet again. So they're like, oh, I can't wait to show Miss Elizabeth what I made with these rocks and these twigs. I can't wait to show her how I made a spider web with leaves. Whatever it is, we want the kids to be excited. So grab that, think about that throughout everything that you do. Think about your resources, look at one page in a book, and I guarantee you, you're gonna find 5 or 6 or 7 activities. I'm really sorry I didn't have more time to get into the activities with you guys. I hope though that I got your brains moving a little bit, and I hope that thinking about moving forward from here, you guys can, you know, kind of start coming up with those things. I hope that you're gonna look at books and see them a little bit more as a bigger resource than many of us realize they already are. So thank you guys so much for your participation, and I have enjoyed all of your thoughts. Do you guys have any closing thoughts, any last minute things? I'm gonna flip to